So thank you everyone for joining us on this third session of chat with Chris about his journey on Top Shot. So Chris, you actually got to shoot this time. How about that?
Yeah, pretty exciting. After the episode 2 with the BAR, I didn't get a chance to shoot. I was really looking forward to a chance for redemption. At this point in the competition, I'm still kind of a nobody. And I made it. Obviously, I was good enough to make it on to season 4, but making it on is that's not winning, right? And so finally here in the Shotgun Showdown episode, I definitely got a chance to shoot and did really well, and happy at I feel like that was a good opportunity at redemption there.
So talk about the training session. You own one of these guns, so obviously it wasn't anything novel for you, and I imagine that you spent quite a bit of time practicing with that shotgun before you even went on the show. And so how did that translate to your success there, and even just the training session?
Yeah, great question. So they didn't put this footage on the episode, but I own a Benelli Vinci, and when we walked up to that practice session, and Colby announced that, hey, right, Benelli M4 and then Benelli Vinci, I was like, all right, I own one of those shotguns. This hopefully this challenge will be something that will be not easy per se, but at least I'm very familiar with the shotgun. When I was training for Top Shot in the months leading up to leaving to go down to LA, which is where the show was filmed, I did a lot of trap and skeet shooting, and shotgunning. It's a unique weapon because usually you have a lot of moving targets, and shooting a moving target is very different than shooting a static target. We can maybe go into some of the finer details later, but I love shotguns. Last week, somebody asked me, what would be my zombie apocalypse weapon of choice, and shotgun, absolutely, no doubt.
So you did really well even in the training session, hit all your targets, and it seemed like so did the other team members. Did everyone have experience with shotguns, or was it just the good footage that was shown on? Did people struggle with that gun at all?
There were definitely varying levels of shotgun exposure and experience, and Gabby was actually struggling a little bit. She hasn't had a ton of time behind the shotgun, and she's a smaller framed woman, and so having to absorb that recoil is challenging, especially when we're compressing the amount of practice time into a very short time period. Basically, we have a set number of rounds, and we have, I think we had an hour and 20 minutes for that practice session. So when you are forced to just, round after round after round, all of those shotgun blasts, going into your shoulder, and if you're not used to that, that can be very exhausting and really tiring. And so Gabby was definitely feeling a lot of that fatigue. She actually has a blog post about her experience today, so if you're interested, Gabby's got a Facebook page and Twitter feed if you want to go read more about her experience. I actually posted it on my own Facebook page as well if you want to go read that later.
So you didn't obviously know much about the challenge before the actual challenge itself. What did you guys talk about during training and after training about how you were going to prepare and approach this challenge?
So, the game that all of us play after a practice, right? We've seen the weapons or weapons, and then we've obviously sort of seen what sort of targets that they're having a shoot at. And then the game is, what do we think the challenge is going to be like? And, wouldn't you know it, the red team, we pretty much nailed what the challenge was going to be. We figured there was going to be some sort of dependency, right? Like one shotgun was going to activate some sort of something else, and then and that we figured it was going to be some sort of like side-by-side shooting challenge. So I don't remember some of the other ideas that we had talked about, but we had a short list of possible scenarios, and part of the red team planning, and something that was just so great about being on the red team, is we were gaming out all of those scenarios. So if it was, scenario A, here's going to be sort of our general strategic approach towards that sort of challenge. If it's, challenge option B, here's sort of how we're going to approach it. And so, when we walked up to the actual challenge, we weren't really surprised. We actually had a game plan that, we have about 5 minutes after Colby introduces the challenge. There's a 5-minute planning session. We already sort of had our plan in place, and so we just needed to review our communication strategy and then just execute. So it was really, really flawless.
So the communication obviously worked really well. Tell us about that. So what was the, I heard people saying front safety and back safety. Was it safety switching? Or what was going on at that point? And what did you do to plan that whole thing?
Yeah, so there's a great video on the History Channel that dives a little bit deeper into the red team communication during the challenge. And so on the Benellis, the safety is in different places depending on which gun you're on. And part of the rules for that challenge was that you had to, when you left the shooting bench, you had to put the safety on. So I think in one part when the blue team, I think it was Greg, you saw him sort of run back. He forgot to put the safety on. So, since this was a time challenge, we knew that every second literally counts. We wanted to maximize the number of opportunities our team would have to shoot at targets. So the safety, when you're in the heat of competition, there's all sorts of strange, funny things that can happen, right? It seems like it would be so easy to just, you run up, turn the safety off, you fire your targets, you reload, and then you turn the safety back on. These all sound like really simple steps, but when you have adrenaline and just a lot of, cheering and other noise and stress, the approach that the red team had, we wanted to leave nothing to chance. And so our communication plan was shooters run up to the bench, and there was one person communicating to the shooter in front of them where that safety was. So you'd either hear them say front safety or rear safety, and that was an audible reminder to turn the safety off and then fire, because the last thing you want is the skeet shooter on the Benelli Vinci saying pull or ready, and then the M4 shooter on the slugs pressing, and nothing's happening. So, and that can burn 5 to 8 seconds, but that's almost enough time to get a full another 2-man cycle in.
You guys didn't even run into each other. Was there a plan around how people were going to run up to the platform and how you guys were going to run back to your spot in the back of the line?
Yeah, great question. So even little things, like how runners or how shooters were going to run back to the line. The idea was shooters were going to run to the outside, so then the new shooters can run straight up on the inside. And so we tried to, hold that pattern. So, we didn't have shooters crashing into each other and then falling and needing to pick themselves up type thing. So it was, it was just a really tightly choreographed performance. We executed on our plan so well. And something that didn't get aired was, Kyle is our team leader. He has been our team leader since the beginning, so they didn't actually show that part either. Kyle has, definitely been a key part in helping not only, craft our strategies, but it's been a very collaborative experience, very similar to how Googlers, collaborate here. It's, Kyle doesn't just come in and say, here's the plan and this is it, and everyone's going to do what I say. It's definitely not like that at all. We put forward all everyone's ideas, and we talk about them, and in the end, we come to what the group thinks, is the best plan.
So you shot all your targets. You didn't miss any shots. Did you know that when in the middle of the challenge? Did you feel good about it, or did you realize that after?
Yeah, so each of us were definitely able to keep tabs as to how we were doing individually, and then how our fellow competitors were doing as well. And I was really pleased that I did so well. And there were definitely other shooters on the red team that did really well too. Chi went 4 for 4, and Kyle, I believe, also went 4 for 4. And right there's, and then with me going 4 for 4, there's 12 of our points, right there. So we had just a really, I think, solid performance, all around. And just, kind of back to that communication and strategy piece was really, I think, critical to our winning that challenge.
So along comes the blue team, and they're very relaxed, or so it seems. They're taking their time. Obviously, it's not as well planned or thought out as the red team is. Did you guys notice that? And were you already celebrating before the challenge was over, thinking? I know I was, because I said, "Oh yeah, they were wasting so much time. They're not making it."
Yeah. So we the team shooting order was just determined by a coin flip, and so red team we won that coin flip. So we had the benefit of watching the blue team perform, and I remember just the first 30, 45 seconds. Yeah, I mean, I was sitting there saying, if this is going to be the tempo for the rest of their time, like, this is going to be, like, we've got this. It wasn't until maybe 2.5 minutes in when I felt, really confident that they just weren't going to be able to catch up to us. The blue team, they definitely have some kind of core problems with just their team dynamic, their team leader, or lack of sort of team leadership and organization. And, we definitely noticed that as well in, just conversations around the house, in their sort of their planning sessions. We can't hear each other, but we can sort of see sort of like the dynamic when they're planning. And I think a little bit of what factored into the blue team loss in the shotgun challenge was the fact that they were coming off of a win from the BAR challenge. And, right, we see this in sports and competition all the time, right? You're riding high in a win, and maybe you get a little either, I don't necessarily know if they were overconfident. I think they just got a little lazy. I think they just sort of let their guard down. I think that was sort of my take on things.
Did you feel like they regretted that at some point? I mean, obviously on the show they did, talk about how after the elimination they said things have changed and you're going to see a better blue team. But did you feel like that was it, or was that just talk?
Yeah, at that point, so whenever these confessionals are like going on, right, where individuals are talking to the camera, like those are like off, like outside of the house, like we're not privy to what other people are saying. And so, after that challenge, and when the blue team, we came back to the house, they were talking about their nomination, they were in their nomination discussion. When they came out of it, they were really sad, definitely disappointed in their own performance. And I didn't see anything different. It's not like they had a team leader, coming out of that meeting. You saw a preview at the end of Tuesday's episode where Terry, basically was like, "Hey guys, like we need to pull this together, or else, we're in trouble." So that was a little bit of an inflection point, and so we'll see next week, if the blue team, can turn it around for themselves or not.
So Greg, is in this discussion saying he's not going to vote for his friends. Was he there to win, or was he there to make friends? What was that? What was sort of his goal there?
So I'll just be honest. I was cracking up when that whole sort of subplot line played out. First and foremost, every single competitor in the competition is there to win. I mean that you don't go through this whole like audition process and going on national TV to be scrutinized. You don't go on to lose. So everyone is definitely in the winning mindset. Where I think it differs member by cast member by cast member is this like friendship question. For me, I definitely came into the competition with the mindset, like I am not here to make friends. I'm here to win, if I happen to make friends along the way, that'll be nice. But I kind of have, so when I'm playing poker, I play Hold'em, and my sort of mentality with poker is very similar. Like, I don't like playing against my friends because if I win their money, I'm going to feel bad about that. And so it actually is easier for me to kind of play poker with strangers because if I take their money, then whatever, like, I don't feel as bad. So, yeah, it was just so interesting for me to see, I mean, I got to know Greg really well, and, he's actually a very, very nice guy. Obviously, they are picking out, kind of the more sort of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Kind of the more polarizing sort of comments that more extreme sort of comments and that he's making. Yeah, I mean, everything that you said is true. Like, friendships really do mean a lot to him. At this point in episode 3, we've only been around each other for 9 days. So, imagine being around a group of people for 9 days, and yes, I mean, we are forming really close bonds very quickly because we're living with each other 24/7, and we're just around each other. But yeah, I guess it just I think the interesting thing is some people can form those really deep, close bonds much faster than other people. And I think, to a certain extent, I think that's great. I think that's really something special that, if somebody can connect with another person in a very short amount of time. And I guess at the end of the day, I mean, we're all searching for happiness and to be happy and enjoy life, and to have that sort of friendship process be really super accelerated. I'll be honest, I think I'm a little envious of that. Back into the context of the competition, though, I mean, you know what? I realized and envisioned that, if I'm going to win Top Shot, I'm going to have to eliminate every single person, that's around me. And that was sort of another motivation to not make friends with people, because I'm going to have to, send friends home. I'm not sure whether Greg, was in that sort of mindset, or if you realize that, hey, the winner is going to have to send every single person home. And so poor Greg is definitely entertaining to watch. And for next week, hopefully he'll let his shooting do more of the talking.
So Michelle and Terry go to elimination. Was that they missed all their shots? But at the time, having said that, were you surprised?
At the time, yeah, I wasn't too surprised. On the blue team, there were, you could look at it from a performance perspective, and there were a number of blue team members who, they fell short in that challenge. Then there's always the personality kind of angle. Greg is definitely a polarizing figure on the team. He did well in the challenge, though, so there's that balance. Colin is causing a little bit of friction also, and I guess I'm saying I wouldn't have been surprised if Colin or Greg had been sent, but Terry kind of threw his name in the hat. And it's interesting in these nomination discussions where if somebody, it's sort of what's the right strategy? Do you sort of stay quiet and hope to literally just sort of fly under the radar, or do you just volunteer your name out there and just sort of man up, if you will, and throw your name in the hat? Terry threw his name in, and that it seemed like that was the momentum that the blue team needed to kind of come to a close with the nomination part.
So Michelle left the show. I imagine that it affected Gabby the most because she was the only other girl in the show. Did it affect her at all?
Yeah, so the women, they have a little casita off on the side of the house, so they definitely have their privacy, and they can be removed from all kind of the the craziness of the main house. And so, Gabby and Michelle, they became, very close friends as well, being the only two female shooters in a group of 18 competitors. And especially with sort of the history of prior seasons in Top Shot, where, the women sort of a mixed bag in performance, like Tara from season 1, I thought she was, phenomenal. Athena, was she season 1? I think Athena was season 1 or maybe season 2. Season 3, though, the women got eliminated in the first 2 episodes. And so I think there's been a real strong demand for really excellent, female shooters. And Gabby and Michelle were definitely aware of that expectation. And so, both Gabby and Michelle, and honestly, I think, a lot of the men too, like we want both of them to go, very far, if not win, Top Shot. At this point, Gabby's, the only, woman that has a chance at, winning it all. And so, Gabby was definitely sad, and now she's all alone in the casita. But she's a very, very strong individual. She's an Olympic shooter. So she knows how to compete. She's won at the international level, and kind of to go back to the friends sort of things, like, like we're all going to lose, people we like, or friends, but to compete, you got to keep your head in the game. And Gabby, definitely, has her head in the game.
So after a big win like that, did the red team have some sort of a celebration routine that you guys did after every win, or obviously there was some sort of celebration after all that?
I mean, I guess yes and no. I mean, I wouldn't quite call it like a celebration. I mean, we're definitely happy that, when we won the plate challenge in episode 1, and then when we won the shotgun challenge, we're definitely happy, but, we definitely didn't want to, rub it in the blue team's face or, boast about that. The thing that I really like about the red team is, we're all just very professional, we're all sportsmen and women, and it's just very professional. The one thing that we got a little bit of a glimpse on Tuesday was our team cheers. So, we go red team, and when Chris Reed was there, right, we did a whole, clay pigeon launching, and then we shoot it out of the air. And so after each, depending on what the weapon or the challenge is, we actually change our cheer. So like for the BAR, we did, red team, like to simulate an automatic weapon. When Keith got eliminated, we did, red team, like a grenade, launcher, exploding. So that's been probably as far as I would go to say, like, the red team celebrating our wins, as we kind of had this fun and quirky, team chant after, and you know what? Even when we lost, like when we lost, the BAR challenge, it's our way of reminding ourselves that we're a team, and even when we lose, right, we're still a team, and we have the next challenge that we're going to have to stay focused. And as long as we stay, strong as a team unit, that improves all of our chances of eventually, making it to the green shirt phase, and and then winning the competition.
Let's open it up to the crowd here for questions.
So last season, there seemed to be a certain military, then police, then everybody else separation going on, and that was even commented on quite specifically. There seems to be less of that so far in this season. Can you comment on how that's playing out?
Yeah, great question. And the season 4 cast just a really great group of people, and like any kind of normal group, there's going to be some cliques, but it definitely wasn't based on like military and like the law enforcement or federal government folks, and then like everyone else. Like, and it wasn't like red team and blue team. Even it wasn't even that. We all just really got along. I mean, naturally there were some tension points. But sort of at the end of the day, like we all still keep in touch with each other. We've got a private Facebook group, and there's certain events throughout the year that like sort of mini reunions and stuff. But yeah, like I never felt excluded because I'm just an IT person that shoots on my in my spare time as a self-taught amateur. Like people weren't excluding me, or I definitely didn't feel excluded. So really great experience. Being on the team, being on the red team, being on the cast, living in the house, really positive experience for me.
I do want to say watching the teamwork on that on Tuesdays was very, very fun. In other words, you could just see everybody clicking and merging together. So yeah.
Thanks, and I think a question that I've been getting is did what we saw on TV, was it actually? Do you think it portrayed the actual experience? And yeah, I mean, watching everything on Tuesday, I was like, yeah, like that's exactly just how I remember that experience, and I'm really glad that it was conveyed on screen. So at the end of the day, we want to share that experience with the viewers.
All right, we have some questions online that we can get to. Can you help settle an argument? If you're trying to learn how to shoot an iron sight on an assault rifle, example AR-15, is it better to practice shooting with a .22 LR or use .223?
Really good question. I mean, I guess it depends. So I guess, okay, so the question is asking if you're starting to learn. So I guess I have to assume that they don't have much shooting experience. So I guess, if you don't, I mean, I'll answer on both sides, right? If you don't have a lot of experience, or even if you do, if you don't, I mean, I guess I would probably recommend starting off with, using 22 rounds, because they're smaller, the recoil is lighter, and from a cost perspective, it's just much cheaper. And I think, whenever you're learning a new weapon, you need to get very familiar with just all the mechanics, the feel. You literally need to get, hundreds, if not thousands of rounds downrange before, you fully, get comfortable with any sort of weapons platform. So for anyone new, I would say, if you have an AR-15, and if you have to buy a 22 conversion kit, which is like $100 or $200 or $300, something like that, depending on the kit, and then kind of move yourself up to the full 223 round. Mostly, I guess, from both a practical experience and also from a cost perspective as well. If you have experience, I guess the cost argument still holds. But if you've been shooting, if you have rifle experience, I would say just use start with the 223 rounds. Because I guess for me, I mean, it depends on your personality, but like I don't know, I just like if I have a powerful weapon, I want to maximize the the bang out of the gun. So I would say if you've got experience, use 223. And on a side note, I think it's great that, to learn on iron sights. I think I have a tendency to use scopes not as a crutch, but I don't know. I think scopes are cool, but I guess at the end of the day, to sort of use a weapon in its most sort of pure state and just, really understanding just the very drop-dead simple basics of iron sights. And, right, what if your scope breaks? You're going to need to use iron sights, and so it's always a good... it's good to know your weapon and be able to use it in any sort of circumstance.
We seem to have Colby fans every week. Are Colby's teeth as white in person as they are on TV?
Yes. It's amazing. The man's got really good dental hygiene, and yeah, they are sparkly white. It's not just TV. It's not, the HD on your TV definitely makes them stand out, but even in person, yes, they are really white. On a side note, I'm trying to remember one of my friends, so I went to UCLA for undergrad, and so, we're sort of in the land of, Hollywood and all the sort of the things that Hollywood people do. And apparently there is a, it's a machine made by Philips that does this like teeth whitening. Sort of like I guess a lot of actors will use this system. And my friend pinged me the name of it the other day, and I went to the website. Yeah, it's basically like this imagine like a dentist like X-ray sort of that swing arm thing. And it looks like it's just sort of like some sort of X-ray gun or something that they just blast your teeth, something like that. But yes, they are very, very white. But he's got a great smile, right? That's like, that's definitely part of his trademark and part of his charm.
So this episode made it fairly obvious that teamwork is really important. And how much did your life prior to going to the show and then the culture at Google affect your contribution? How did you even contribute to that teamwork?
Yeah, really great question. And I'm coming up to my 5-year anniversary here at Google, and have definitely, like all of us, have had a lot of team experiences. And teamwork is not easy. On the face of it, it seems like it could be, right? You're in a team, figure out each other's work styles and personalities, and work well together. Go. I think being Google culture is it's a great place to learn how to be collaborative, how to be open-minded, how we facilitate discussions about, well, what do you think, and what do you think, and let's whiteboard some other ideas, and then eventually let's distill it all down to the best ideas. So for me, Google culture definitely played a key role in how I was approaching sort of my role on the red team, where for me, I definitely saw the importance and the value of letting each individual shine, right? And for me, it was about providing people that space. So it can't be me, or it can't be any individual on the red team dominating discussions. And so I was definitely kind of keying into the conversation tempos, right? How and sort of how much certain individuals were talking. If someone was a little quiet, maybe it'd be me or someone else saying hey, hey Chi, you haven't really said much, what do you think about whatever? So, really being aware of all those dynamics, I think definitely, made my experience a good one. And then obviously everyone else on the red team, we just lucked out, right? In episode 1 with the M14 challenge, and the shooting order was just determined on, by odds or evens. Wow, I mean, we just lucked out with our red team composition.
How much did your shoulder hurt after that shotgun challenge? I imagine Michelle and Terry's hurt a lot because they went to the elimination challenge.
So, because I had gone to the skeet and trap range and just got so much time behind my Benelli Vinci shotgun, it wasn't a problem for me at all. All in all, when the dust settled, so as I talked about 2 weeks ago in the episode 1 recap, so each episode is 3 days in real time. Day 1 is the team practice. Day 2 is the team challenge in the morning. Then the nomination range in the afternoon, and then day 3 is the individual practice in the morning, and then the individual elimination in the afternoon. So for days 1 and 2 for the practice and the challenge, I maybe only shot 20 rounds total, something like 14 rounds in practice, and then 6, 7, 8 rounds in the actual challenge. So yeah, for me, it was just sort of another day at the range. But Gabby was the main one on the red team, at least that I remember standing out in my mind, where she was definitely feeling it. I think she might have even iced it afterwards, just as a precaution, just to make sure that she was going to be ready for the team challenge the next day.
What was it like living in a house with these people all the time initially versus as time went on? Did that change?
Yeah, as time went by, and at this point in the competition, like I said earlier, we're about 9 days in. But you know, when you are in an environment where you have no internet and no TV and no MP3 players, and all we have is, you know, our each other's company, you get to, you know people really well, really quickly, and right with that comes an increase in comfort level. So you know, even in that short 9-day period, and sort of to what Little John, you know, was getting at in this episode, there is this. It was much more comfortable living in the house on day 9 than it was on day 1. You know, we ate our meals together. You know, we're out at practice, and then we're obviously competing. And there's just a lot of downtime while we're in between all of these activities. And so, yeah, I just became very comfortable. I think the thing that was probably most challenging for me was that I bunked with, so each room has bunk beds. So kind of going back to like college days, and we had some snores in our room, and so just adapting to that, right? I mean, getting a good night's sleep is really important, you know, in a competition like this. And luckily, you know, I had some foam earplugs, and actually, so besides the snoring, so Kyle was one of my roommates, and he got up at 5 a.m. every day to work out. He's 50 years old. He is just in incredible shape, and he's just so disciplined also. Wake up every single morning, and he had a whole, you know, routine of like push-ups and jogging, you know, routine and push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, the whole kind of rigmarole. So, you know, I like to sleep in. So he would wake up at 5. I would typically wake up around 7:30 even sometimes. And so trying to adjust to other people's sort of living and, you know, sleeping habits was, you know, still hard, I think, at this point in day 9.
Yeah, I just thought of this one. So you lived the experience, but looking at the show, is there anything that in the footage that surprised you? And I may ask this later on too, once we've seen more of the episodes.
Yeah, it's a good question. Give me a second here to think about anything that surprised me. So, you know, Greg's, you know, that whole nomination discussion, and, you know, hearing him talk about, you know, his friendship bonds, and I had no idea that was a factor in the blue team's nomination discussion. So that definitely, like, that was when I saw episode 3 on TV on Tuesday, I was like, wow, okay, that was something I didn't know. Going, you know, when I went through the experience. I did not know that Terry had put himself out there also. I thought it was good of him to do that, and although it's a risk, I mean, it's a huge risk, like I was mentioning earlier. It's like sometimes, you know, the strategy could be to just be quiet. And who knows, right? Maybe he was really quiet for a good part of that conversation, right? We didn't. Those conversations, the nomination sort of discussions, they can span anywhere from like 15 to like 60 minutes, and sometimes we have to get to the nomination range because the sun's going down or something, right? So they need to get that footage. So sometimes those conversations are rushed, and so if you ever see one of those discussions, you're like, how come they didn't talk about this, or how come they didn't talk about that? There's a good chance that they probably did, or if they didn't, it was because, you know, we had to get to the nomination range and make it happen.
Watching all the setup of the challenges, is there an army of grips and carpenters and mechanics running around doing all this?
Great question. So there is an art department and a whole construction kind of crew that sets up, you know, all of these amazing challenges, and, you know, they are definitely sort of the unsung heroes, you know, behind the scenes. The attention to detail, and, you know, just seeing how hard they're working. Also, I mean, we're in triple-digit heat. This is like August, in the dead heat of summer in a valley in Southern California, and we saw a good amount of the art department, because basically we would get called from the house down to to the set and the range, but they wouldn't be always done yet, right? They would call us just to have us ready when the art department and the camera crews were all done. But it was really fun to see the process of them building all the sets and the challenges. Really impressive stuff, and they obviously so far, at least in my opinion, definitely have outdone themselves so far. In particular, the grenade launcher, elimination challenge, and just those explosions were just perfect, and they were just ginormously huge. And I guess from a different angle, I think the shotgun episode, from a cinematography perspective, the slow motion, man, in this episode, wow, and seeing the slugs and the buckshot hitting those metal plates, and it was like, holy cow, this is just it's eye candy. That just is so good.
Alrighty, thank you very much. We'll see you next week.